Nabal had treated David and his men badly. David went out to get his revenge and kill Nabal. But Nabal's wife Abigail pleaded with David to have compassion, reminding him that vengeance belongs to God, not men. What one superhero weapon or accessory would be the coolest to have? Hey guys, so what one superhero weapon or accessory would be the coolest to have? They have some pretty awesome things. I probably would like either to have Green Lantern's lantern, so I could see things in the dark. Maybe um Batman's light, like his bat signal, that's pretty cool. So if like bat signal went off, I would know that somebody needs help, or maybe that um I needed to be somewhere. That would be pretty cool. Um, and maybe Iron Man's suit because he has a lot of really cool gadgets in there. Well, in 2012, Marvel Studios made a really surprising announcement. They were going to make a movie about a comic book called Guardians of the Galaxy. And this was a surprise because back then, which doesn't seem that long ago, people had never really heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And so most fans had never heard of Star Lord, Rocket, Root, Gamora, Drax. And when the original concept art for the team was released, they were really confused. Who are these people? And why is there a giant tree man? And why is there a raccoon with a machine gun? It just makes sense. Well, everybody knows the Guardians now, and their movies are some of the most popular in the whole Marvel universe. They became a really big hit because not only the great actors and the great script, but because they remind us a lot about us, or of us. And sure, they are two green aliens, half human, a raccoon, a walking tree. But the relationships, they're very much like the ones that we have with our own families and our friends. Sometimes the guardians lift each other up, and other times they pull each other down. They don't always make the best choices, and they can cause problems for each other. But in the end, they rise above their differences and fight for the good of the whole galaxy. Does it sound like you and your friends? Are you different people when you have that uh, big of an attack impact on each other? When one of you is hurting, does everyone lend support? When one of you is happy, are you all happy? When one of you does something good, does it inspire others? When one of you starts talking bad about other people, does anyone else join in? If you can answer yes to that last one, then you're not alone. I think we've all been in that situation when one friend's anger made everyone angry at someone, or when one friend made a bad choice that led to everyone making the same bad choice. It happens. It's called peer pressure. Well, friends can lift each other up or pull each other down. Our challenge as non-Avengers and followers of Jesus is to become the kind of friend who makes it easier for our friends to resist being pulled down. We need to be people who not only make the right choice, but inspire our friends to stand with us and make the same right choice. Well, last week, remember, we met a non-Avenger named David. And when David had the opportunity to strike down his enemy, King Saul, he chose compassion over anger and he saved himself. Well, today we're going to see that same man, David, nearly choose the opposite. So when another bully chooses to be mean to David's friends, he wants the rest of his friends to team up with him and get revenge. Well, only the quick thinking of a very brave woman had stopped David from leading his friends down a very dark path. So we're in 1 Samuel 24, verses 4 through 33. That's the account of David and Abigail. So David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men. And David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel and go to Nabal and greet him in my name. And thus you shall greet him. Peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace to all that you have. I hear that you have shearers. Now our shepherds have been with us, and we did them no harm, and they missed nothing all the time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men And they will tell you, therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever you have at hand to your servants and to your son David. When David's young men came, they said all this to Nabal in the name of David. And when they waited, and Nabal answered David's servants, who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants these days who are breaking away from their masters. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shears and give it to the men who come from I do not know where? So David's young men turned away and came back and told him all this. And David said to his men, every man strap on his sword, and every man of them strapped on his sword. David also strapped on his sword, and about 400 men went up after David, while 200 remained with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to greet our master, and he railed at them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we suffered no harm, and we did not miss anything when we were in the fields, so long as we went with them. They were a wall to us both by night and by day, all the while that we were with them, keeping the sheep. Now therefore know this, and consider what you should say, or what you should do. For harm is determined against our master and against all his house, and he is such a worthless man that one cannot speak to him. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 skins of wine, and 5 sheep already prepared, and 5 sheaths of parched grain, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on donkeys. And she said to her young men, go on before me, behold, I come after you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As she rode on the donkey and came down under the mountain, behold, David and his men came down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, surely in vain have I guarded all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing is missed, for all that has belonged to him. And he has returned me evil for good. God do so to the enemies of David, and more also, if by morning I leave so much as one male of all who belong to him. When Abigail saw David, she hurried and got down from the donkey, and fell before David on her face, bowed to the ground. She fell to his feet and said, oh, or on me alone, my lord, be the guilt. Please let your servant speak to your ears, and hear the words of your servant. Let not my lord regard this worthless fellow, Nabal, for his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. But I, your servant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent. Now, then, my lord, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, because the Lord has restrained you from blood guilt, and from saving with your own hand, now, then let your enemies and those who speak to do evil to my lord be as Nabal. And now let this present that your servant has brought to my lord be given to the young men who follow my lord. Please forgive the trespass of your servant, for the Lord will certainly make my lord a sure house, because my lord is fighting the battles of the Lord. And evil shall not be found in you so long as you live. If men rise up to pursue you and to seek your life, the life of my lord should be bound to the bundle of the living in the care of the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the hollow of a sling. And when the Lord has done to my lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed the prince over Israel, my lord shall have no cause or grief or pangs of conscience for having shed blood without cause, or for my lord working salvation himself. And when the Lord has dealt well with my lord, then remember your servant. And David said to Abigail, blessed is the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. Blessed be your discretion, and blessed be you, who has kept me this day from blood guilt and from working salvation with my own hand. Wow. So that was a lot, and there was a lot of lords in there. So Abigail is talking about her Lord David as the king, but then they're also talking about Lord God. So David let his anger get the best of him. He was mad at Nabal and how Nabal treated his men. He was angry. He made his friends angry too. And they all wanted to follow David's lead and hurt Nabal so badly. No one would ever mess with David again. David was a good man, but in that moment, he made a bad choice and was a terrible leader to his friends. It was Abigail who proved to be the good influence in this lesson. Her quick thinking and her courage stopped David and his men from a terrible evil. David realized that he was wrong, and he let Abigail pull him and his men away from doing harm. Well, Abigail shows us that we can be a force for good with our friends. God can give us the wisdom and courage to stand for what's right, and He can use us to be a good influence on our friends. We can follow the crowd and do whatever, or we can become leaders, point our friends to Jesus. Does anyone um, know what happened to Nabal and Abigail? Well, if you read on, you'll find out that God did indeed punish Nabal for his cruelty. Nabal died, and after he did, David sent for Abigail. And David was so impressed by this woman who had helped him and his friends to do the right thing that he married her. Um, it's very likely that David wanted her positive influence near him so that she could continue to lift David up and help him choose the right things to do. We like those positive people in our lives. They make us feel good. It wasn't easy for Abigail to do what she did, I'm sure. David would have killed her too if he had gone through with his plans, simply because she was married to Nabal. But she challenged David. She challenged David to do the right thing, and he listened to her. We can do the same thing with our friends. We can shut down their poor choices and help them to do the right thing. So, how will you respond this week when your friend is mad at someone else? Will you join them? Will you say bad things about the other person? Or will you encourage them to forgive? How are you going to respond when you hear gossip this week? Will you pass it on? Will you ignore it? Or will you have the courage to say, this isn't right. We can't talk bad about other people. How will you respond when someone wants to play a prank on someone? When someone wants your help getting payback? I know pranks are fun. Will you go along with it and play your part? Or will you stand up and say, this is not how we should treat other people? When you put it in our terms, it's clear to see that Abigail had a lot of courage. She got that courage from the Lord, and He gave us, He can give us the same courage that she had. Let's ask God to make us a positive influence on our friends. Let's not only be non-Avengers, but leaders. Let's set an example in doing right so that others will choose compassion so that our friends can make the right choices too. Dear God, help us to be a good example of how to love others. Ephesians 4:32. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you. Let's make this week's lesson real. Are you a leader or follower with your friends? What are you doing to become a better leader? Families, let's work together to set an example when it comes to loving others and not spreading gossip.